Meeting called to order. And today is August 29th and occurring both in person and on Zoom. So City Clerk, would you please call the roll, please?
Councilmember Barbadillo. Vice Mayor Chua.
Hold on a minute. Here.
Councilmember Lian.
Here.
Councilmember Fan.
Absent. Oh, I didn't see you. Sorry.
Present.
Sorry.
Mayor
Okay.
Montano.
And I am here. Thank you. All right. So now we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone stand up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so now let's move on to the public forum. Members of the public are invited to speak on any item not listed on the agenda. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on any item? Seeing none, is there anyone from Zoom?
We have no hands raised in Zoom.
Okay, so moving on to the announcement of the conflict of interest and campaign contributions, we have Michael Mutalapasi, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I ask you, Mayor, and each of the council members, whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda.
Councilmember Barbadillo. Vice Mayor Chua.
None.
Councilmember Lian. Councilmember Fan.
None.
Mayor Montano.
None. Thank you.
Please let the record reflect there are no reported conflicts, and tonight we do not have any development projects or contracts on tonight's agenda, so no further admonitions are required.
Okay, thank you. So now I will read the code of conduct. Be respectful and courteous. Words and body tone do matter. Model civility, avoid surprises, avoid praise publicly, criticize privately, focus on the issue and not the person. Refrain from using electronic devices on the dais. Disclose conflict of interest and affiliations related to the agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policy on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration. Council will hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct. And now moving on to the approval of the agenda. So if anyone has any changes, please let me know now. Hold on a minute. Okay,
So moved.
there a second? It was motioned by, approved by Vice Mayor Chua and seconded by Councilmember Lian. Okay, and now let's take the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo. Vice Mayor Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Lian.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan. Mayor Montano.
And I am an aye. Okay, and so now I'm going to call on the Assistant City Manager to receive the presentation and review on this City Council procedures.
Thank you, Mayor Montano. We will have the Assistant City Manager give a presentation. Before, I'd just like to introduce this item by saying that tonight's special study session was requested by the council as far back as February and then again in June as various discussions were held regarding the council handbook. So tonight's one agenda item will be a discussion for the council. No formal action will be taken, but it will, staff is looking for direction, if any, on potential changes to the what is formerly known as the Council Procedures and Protocols Handbook. So with that, I'll introduce our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kantak, to provide a presentation, and then we will help facilitate the discussion by the staff, by the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Ashwani Kantak, Assistant City Manager. And if we could please have the presentation now. Next slide, please. So just going over the agenda, we'll start out with a little bit of background, and I'll cover that as well as City Attorney Matalapasi. And then we will give you an overview of the current handbook, the chapters, and just key topics that are in each of the chapters. And then we have several potential discussion topics that have been brought up by various members of the council in council meetings and leading up to this study session. And then we'll have, as the acting city manager said, we are not looking for necessarily direction on changing anything in the handbook, but we will be seeking your feedback, and we will bring something back to you for consideration in the future. So next slide, please. And actually the next one after that. So the City Council Handbook was first adopted in 2004 and basically provides guidance to the council in conducting all city business. And there have been several amendments since it was first adopted. And then there was significant council and staff work, including a subcommittee that was done between 2018 and 2021 to modernize the handbook. So the handbook that we're referring to today is the substantively updated handbook. It was adopted by council in January of 2022. And again, the formal name is City Council Protocols and Procedures Handbook. I'll be just referring to it as the handbook. And all of the chapters were updated to reflect current laws and best practices. At that time, council did ask staff to come back for a more substantive discussion to include seating arrangements, use of mobile devices, as well as proclamations and commendations. And since then, we've had two minor updates to the handbook, once in February of this year and once as recently as June. The February update was related to virtual city council meetings based on updated state law. And then there was also a council request for language and translation policy. So that was incorporated into the handbook. And then in June, we did a minor update. Council approved the use of electronic voting in limited circumstances. Next slide, please. And I'll hand this off to City Attorney Matalapasi to go over the priorities of rules.
Thank you, Ms. Kantak. I added the slide here related to the priorities of procedural rules so that the council would understand how the handbook, where the handbook sits and how it interplays with other procedural rules that this council has to follow. These rules are listed in order of their priority. That means, in general, the rules at the top have to always be followed. And if there's a conflict between a set of rules below, rule at the top, the rule at the top is always going to take priority. The council will always have to follow federal law. Here, we're usually talking about federal constitutional rights. These are in the first, 14th, and 5th Amendments. Generally, with city council meetings, we're talking about rights to free speech and rights to due process. After federal law, the next priority is state law. These are generally your open meeting laws. These are primarily the Ralph M. Brown Act. This is Government Code Section 54950 et sec. These are the laws that we worry about: agendas, timing, serial meetings, those kinds of things that you guys are all familiar with. Below in priority state law is the local ordinances. Generally in Milpitas, this would be the Open Government Ordinance. This is Milpitas Municipal Code Title 1, Chapter 310. This one is going to be interesting in its interaction with the Brown Act in so much as the Brown Act doesn't always take priority. Generally, the interaction between the Open Government Ordinance and the Brown Act is that whichever one is more restrictive is going to take priority. The fourth priority are the rules adopted by the City Council. This is where we're going to find the City Council Handbook. That's what we're here discussing today. And then finally, if there's no other rule governing a question of procedure, will refer to Robert's Rules of Order. And I added Robert's Rules of Order to make sure that each of the council members understands that if there's some portion of Robert's Rules of Order that the council doesn't like as a group following, that it can be changed by making a rule or adopting a rule in the handbook, because the handbook will supersede Robert's Rules of Order. So I hope that gives you a little bit of background just on how this particular handbook relates to other procedural rules governing these meetings. And with that, I'll hand it back to Ms. Kantok.
Thank you. If we could go to the next slide and the one following it. So the next three slides will just give you kind of an overview of the different chapters. So chapter 1 just has the purpose and why we have the handbook, and any revisions are going to be recorded in this chapter. The second chapter is about the duties of the city council, as well as the roles of the city manager and city attorney. So this is the general authority of the council, and then specific duties related to the mayor and vice mayor roles. It talks about absences and vacancies, and then again, roles of the city manager and city attorney and their interaction with the council. Chapter 3 is about mayor and council member conduct, the council code of conduct, which is also incorporated into council agendas for every meeting. In addition to that, there's best practices related to interaction with council meetings and conduct with staff. Next slide, please. Chapter 4 talks about meetings, so the types of meetings, and now we've included virtual meetings in that. The process for conducting them, how the public can participate, what some of the protocols for that, as well as any conflict of interest. And then, as I noted earlier, we added the language policy section more recently. Chapter 5 is the meeting agendas and minutes. So it really calls out the agenda order for every council meeting. And when things need, if the council wishes to place something on the agenda, the process for that, as well as the types of meeting minutes to record what happens at the meetings. Chapter 6 is about city council actions. So the way proclamations and commendations are given out, as well as adoption of ordinances and resolutions and any motions, how the process for motions. Next slide, please. The chapter 7 is about communication, and again we cover the California Public Records Act as well as the Brown Act, but then we also have some language in there about general correspondence, communication with the Planning Commission or any other commissions, and then any external communications, including press releases and the role of individual council members and external communication. And then chapter 8 is about council liaison roles. So the council members participate in a variety of other bodies besides the council. So there's city subcommittees and commissions, and this chapter lays out guidance for participation as liaisons. The council role as different decision-making authorities, like the Public Financing Authority, the Housing Authority Commission, and then regional boards and outside agency representatives. Next slide, please. And so really moving to the key discussion topics here. These are the topics identified by the council, and we've organized them in 3 categories. We also have a couple of suggestions from staff, and it's more cleanup to align with operational practices. But we'll focus first on the topics that are identified by council. So this first slide notes topics that are already in the handbook. So there's sections related to these topics in the handbook, and council will be discussing and giving direction as to how they want it changed, if they do want it changed. And so this first bullet is not, it's a more recent edition. It's not in the agenda report, but it's duties of the vice mayor in chapter 2. In chapter 3, it's the use of electronic devices. That is referenced in the code of conduct, kind of refraining from the use of electronic devices. However, there was a request to look at the use of laptops and cell phones in closed session. This is not included in the handbook currently, but could be incorporated. And then for meetings, it's the presiding officer. There's a section about seating, how the council should be seated when a new council comes in, as well as voting and rules of procedure. And that's what City Attorney Matalapasi kind of outlined for you. So you have that as reference as you talk about any changes to this section. And then city council actions, there's been a request to look at the language related to proclamations and commendations and what the process is for requesting that and issuing those. Next slide, please. So these are topics that are identified that are new, not in the handbook, but governed by other documents currently. So there's city council salaries, and it's the municipal code that is the governing document, Title I. We also had recent legislation, SB 329, that makes some change, allows council to make some changes, and we can talk about that in more detail. Training and travel budget for council. So in the adopted fiscal year 23-24 budget, this was increased. So it's now 10,000 each. And there is a city council policy related to travel and training. That's council policy 3-1. Policies and procedures for censure. There is a city council censure policy, is actually through a resolution 8703, and links to these have been included in your agenda report. And then internships, is a city council interns policy 2-1. So again, these topics are covered by other governing documents, not currently in the handbook. Next slide, please. These are also new topics that have been identified, keys to the city. So really looking at criteria for distribution. How does the council make a decision to give out a key to the city? This, although it's not in the handbook, it could go under city council actions. It could be incorporated into that chapter of the handbook related to other city council actions. And photographs of past members of the council, criteria for placement, so timing and any other criteria council may wish to discuss. Not in the handbook, alternatively could be incorporated into a city facilities policy, as there are other policies related to placement of the seal, flags, etc., that this could be combined with. Next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned, there were just a couple of minor things identified by staff. So we have a meeting start time noted in the handbook. It's really governed by the municipal code. Any change we want to make to that start time will require a amendment to the municipal code. And I just want to note that that's something, it's duplicative, and really the code should be governing document in this case. And then meeting agendas and minutes. We have, since the council handbook was adopted, there have been a few changes to the meeting agenda. So we just want to make sure we reflect the current practice, and also the way the meeting minutes are prepared. There's some conflicting language in the handbook. So these are just cleanup items if council wishes to consider them. Next slide, please. And so our recommendation today is really to review the handbook and then provide input. We anticipate bringing any changes back to you, whether as part of the handbook or as part of a different policy, if that's the wish of the council. And with that, we conclude our presentation and really open it up for council discussion and action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwini. So I guess we can go with the first one that was on the list. Let's do it.
Mayor, would you like to have the presentation up so we go one by one, or how?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Okay, and we do have the handbook itself available to bring up as well if the council wish to look at a particular section. So we can kind of alternate between the slide deck and the handbook if needed. Could we have the presentation up, please? And if we could go to the topics of discussion slide. That's slide 11. If you want to bring that up. Slide 11, please. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Mayor, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. So the chapter 2, duties of the city council, I think that one we already, section C, duties of the vice mayor, when and how vice mayor is selected. So that one, I guess it depends what the mayor at that time of their term, what they decide. For example, previous mayors have done a 2-year for their selection of the vice mayor. However, I have done a 1-year. So that way it can open up opportunity for others to become the vice mayor. So is that something that we need to vote as a team, or is it just the authority of the vice mayor of the mayor? Do we discuss that, or is it just a given that the mayor is the one that decides whether to make it 1 year or 2 years?
And I cannot see if city attorney wants to chime in. I think it could be the mayor's discretion, but
I'm happy to do so, Ms. Kantak. So in the handbook, it doesn't specify a specific term. It does, however, specify when the vice mayor will be appointed. And the appointment of the vice mayor takes place at the first meeting after the seating of a new council, which would imply that the vice mayor's term is 2 years. If you guys wanted to shorten that term to a 1-year term or make it at the discretion of the mayor, then that would be an edit to the handbook.
Well, I would propose that it be the discretion of the mayor, since he or she has to work closely with the vice mayor. And if for some reason that situation is not working out, or also to give an opportunity for someone else, the mayor has that option. So I would like to put that in the handbook, that the mayor has the discretion of choosing their vice mayor every year.
okay, we can take that input. Mayor, I don't know if there's any other council comment, or we can take that input, and then when we come back to you with any modifications, we can edit the language to reflect that.
Okay, we have a vice mayor that would like to make a comment on that.
Thank you, Mayor. But wouldn't it be still? It would still be at the approval of the majority of the city council, because it's the vice mayor position, correct? The way I read this, the duration can be dictated, can be recommended by the mayor, but it still has to be approved by the city council.
What are your thoughts, city attorney?
So I'm not sure this is something that the handbook currently addresses. All the handbook addresses is that the vice mayor will be appointed every 2 years at the first meeting after the election, after the new council is seated.
It doesn't say 2 years.
That's the question I'm asking. The duration can be dictated by the mayor this year, but can be recommended, I should say. But it still has the approval of the city council. That's what I'm trying to say. There are 2 issues there.
So I think the appointment or removal of a vice mayor would be at the recommendation, currently, as the handbook is written, would be at the recommendation of the council, of the mayor, with the approval of the council as the other appointments go. That would be either for the removal or for the appointment. those things can change because they're dictated by the handbook. And so you guys have the power to change them.
How are you, verbiage it there? That's all we're asking. How are you going to update this thing to reflect the change that we're asking right
So-
now?
Mayor, could I?
Go ahead, Ashwini.
Yeah, so right now, the language basically says nomination is done through a motion and appointment is based on a majority vote. And I think we would add that the mayor will appoint, because right now it just says during the first meeting at which the mayor and returning or incoming council members commence their terms. We could say that it's done at the start of every year, every calendar year.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be good.
Yeah, I would.
Also, if I remember correctly, it was, I don't know, correct me, Ashwini, you were before my term, it was done. Was it done, the replacement of the mayor at one point? Was it done in the middle of the year or was it done at the beginning of the year? I can't recall.
It's done when the incoming council, the new, as
The
the
last
council gets
one, the
seated,
last one.
the reorganization. So there was, as you know, there was a time when there was an appointment made for 2 years, but then changed to 1 year, but it's still done, typically done at the
Beginning.
council seated.
Okay. So I think you got what we were trying to say.
Yes.
Right? Is that what you wanted to do, Mayor?
So what I want is to have that option to, in the very beginning, when the mayor gets selected and he or she selects their vice mayor, I recommend that it be every year that the mayor has that option to select or to select the same person
Recommend.
or actually recommend the same person or a new person.
With the approval of the majority of the council,
course,
which is what we have now.
Yeah, with the approval,
Yes.
Got
And,
which is what.
Okay.
and
got it.
Mayor, typically, the election year, it happens at the second meeting in December. So maybe we could keep it the same every year, regardless of whether election or not.
Okay.
That would be good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
So I guess we need some comments from the other council members. Are you guys okay with it? Okay. I think Anthony, Councilmember Fan, has his hand raised.
Okay, so I've sat through that very dramatic time where the vice mayor was replaced, if you will, rotated, if you will. I don't want to dive too deep into it. At the end of the day, I think it's a lot of politics. But I think that the positions that, we get elected to and get sworn into should supersede politics. So when you get elected, you make up your mind who you want to be vice mayor. And you don't get to jump ship just because there are issues that come up. I think that was reflecting back on what happened in the past. It was not a good precedence for us to set. The ability to rotate the mayor, the vice mayor, on a whim. I don't think that's good government. You make a choice, you stick to it. If you have issues, you work it out. Because that's leadership. That's what people elected folks to do. And if that can't be done, then perhaps, delegate that authority to the council to begin with altogether. And that way, no matter who is vice mayor, they have to be able to get along with the rest of the council, because it's a team effort. And I think that, if at the end of the day, when the mayor is not serving or is out of town, or is, unable to discharge the duties they were sworn to do, the line of succession should be somebody who can work with everyone, right? And so not who is the mayor's protege or the loyal to the mayor or any of that. That's not what we got elected to do, right? It comes down to service, and so I think that at the end of the day, the democratic principles would be best reflected if, from one, council works together to appoint the mayor. The vice mayor from the get-go, and it's a full 2-year term. I think that's the best way to do it, to remove the politics out of it. Because if we keep doing this down the road, who knows what's going to happen? Is the only person who is qualified to be vice mayor somebody who can, vote in line with them and, be loyal 100%? I wouldn't want any individual to be beholden like that. We are all independent thinkers, and we should have the respect for one another to trust each other and make our own decisions. So that's my take on it, that, council appoints and confirms the vice mayor, and it's for a full 2-year term.
Okay, anyone else have any comments?
Oh, and I wanted to add that it wasn't like out of nowhere that the rotating the mayor became a thing. It was a one-time thing. It was a one-time thing because the mayor at the time, had issues with the vice mayor. That's quite frankly what it came down to, and rotated them mid-year. And the person who succeeded them, served to the remainder of that term. But then the person who served after that got to serve two full years. So, it can't be a double standard like that. There wasn't a reorganization meeting to confirm that this, person would serve another, year or anything. It was just decided by the mayor unilaterally that, what, I'm just gonna decide to do things this way. And, like I said, it's bad precedence, it's bad government, and it's bad for democracy.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, so the reason why I would, for my rationale for this is it opens up opportunity for others. And let's be realistic. You have to, the mayor and the vice mayor have to work very closely together. And also it just gives an opportunity for someone else. And if we had this rule in place, we wouldn't have had to go through all the drama that we went through 2 years ago. So this is a way to alleviate those issues. Okay. I'm sorry. Gary, do you have I don't see, Gary doesn't have his hand raised. Okay. Anyone more comments? Okay, we'll go on to the next one because we don't want to be here all night. Vice Mayor, hold on.
After Councilmember Fan remarks, I kind of see your point because it really, at that time that happened, it took a really bad precedence, really bad. And also, I'm just speaking in general. Like you said, it's type of leadership that you need to work something out if there's a problem, and don't put this, it's not just me, for the next generation or whatever. Don't put this a hanging thing that, hey, if you don't go with me, this is anybody. It's not the mayor, it's not myself. And if you don't do what I say politically, then you're out. That's not good either. You invest your time, you invest your energy. And this is just speaking for myself, but I see your point, and that kind of swayed my thing on this after the mayor spoke. I thought, oh, okay, that's a good idea. But on the other hand, your points are well taken. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And again, as I mentioned, if we had that option, we wouldn't have had all that drama happen. And it doesn't mean that the same person is not going to get recommended again. It just means that it just opens up an opportunity for others to have that opportunity to be the vice mayor. Okay, any more questions or on that? Is there supposed to be some kind of consensus on this or are you just taking notes to bring it for the next meeting?
Yeah, we're taking notes. I think we
Okay.
have the
Okay.
direction, or at least the input that we need, and we can bring that back to the council for further consideration.
Okay. All right, so the next one, Ashwini?
Yes, if we could have the slide back up. So this is the use of electronic devices. And again, like I said, there's a brief reference to basically council trying to refrain from the use of electronic devices, but there is no reference to use of laptops or cell phones in closed session. So that's not included in the handbook. And that's a topic that I think council was interested in discussing.
Yeah, that one is, and the reason why it's in closed session is really imperative that nothing leaks out. There have been leaks before, and there have been some indicators that people bring their cell phones in, and we don't know if they're recording or not. And these are previous consoles. So I think that it would be good standards to just not have them, or at least just make sure they're in your purse or in your pocket, or don't take them out in terms of the cell phones. And I don't think that we should have laptops in there as well because of security issues.
Ashwini, what page are you on? I'm trying to be at the same page you're looking at. What do you know the page?
So actually, Vice Mayor, there isn't any language about use of cell phones in closed session. So in the City Council Code of Conduct, so that's page 7 of your of the handbook, page 14 of your packet. There is just a general statement about refrain from using electronic devices while on the council dais. So that's the only reference. And then there's reference to the public using, not using cell phones, etc., while in the meeting, council chambers. But there is no language about use of laptops or cell phones in closed session. However, it's included in this section because there is some reference to electronic devices, but not anything specific to closed session.
Page 14, what paragraph, please?
14 of your agenda packet, page 7 of the handbook. I don't know what you're looking at.
07.
And it's section A. It's just a Milpitas City Council Code of Conduct. It's the 6th bullet.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so any more comments on this item? Okay, so those are the comments on that. they're just taking notes right now, and those are the recommendations.
Yes, Mayor, and maybe if there's certain things you want us to come back with in terms of changes to the handbook, then it would be good to get some consensus, but maybe we could go through all the topics and circle back, or if you want to take, because it's
That's
fine
why-
to take input, but if you want us to bring back specific changes, we'd like to see if there's council consensus.
Well, the direction I would like to see is to add that in our code of conduct.
Okay.
For closed session. I don't know if that's where it goes or somewhere in there in the handbook.
Mayor.
That's fine. The code of conduct just says refrain from. So if you're okay with that as, just refrain from using, then we could say on the council days and then also in closed session. If you want something more specific, we could incorporate that elsewhere.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
Refrain doesn't really say avoid, or what is it? I don't know the direction that the rest of the council would like, but what direction were you thinking, Mayor? I mean, refrain can be done either way.
Well, I know that we have our code of conduct and no one's supposed to be using their cell phones on the dais, but people seem to be ignoring that and they still use it. And so I'm really concerned about closed session items being leaked out as they have in the past, or recorded. And if someone has their cell phone, I don't know. I'm not going to go over there and check to see if they're recording or not. But we have some really sensitive issues that have come up in the past, and we just can't take that opportunity, the chance of someone leaking information or recording. So that's why I feel it's important to have that in there, somewhere in there. I don't know if it's in the code of conduct, but somewhere written that no cell phones or laptops. I guess you can have them in there, but you just can't use them, and they need to be put away. And that's my recommendation. Any comments?
Mayor, may I make this?
Ned?
Thank you, Mayor Montano. So the section that we've been discussing is Chapter 3, Mayor and Council Member Conduct. And, the language is there to refrain, and it refers to the dais. As the Assistant City Manager suggested, we could add there and in closed session. However, I might suggest too that in the next chapter, which specifically about meetings, this is Chapter 4, Section D, types of meetings, and then under D, number 4. So this is page 10 in the packet. There are some specific rules. There are rules or guidelines around specific to closed sessions. And that might be an area where we could add a sentence or two regarding the use of electronic devices in closed sessions pertaining specifically to those meetings. If that's appropriate, we could explore that
Actually, that's a
possibility as
good
well.
idea, right? Because it does refer a disciplinary action, referral to the grand jury. And that would be a good way to put it in there, a good section.
I just noticed that there, toward the middle, there's a sentence about, these rules provide for strict confidentiality of city council discussions as required by state law, et cetera, et cetera. And it seems like the topic that you're discussing pertains to that issue. So that would be an appropriate place to insert that language. If you would like this, we can explore that.
Okay, thank you for exploring that. Any other comments? Okay. So Gary has a comment. Okay, Councilmember Odile.
Right. I think Ned has said it already, but there are certain state laws that prohibit information being discussed in closed sessions to be disseminated in one way or the other. And to hearing the genesis of these conduct rules on using electronic devices predicated of fear of things being disclosed which are sensitive would be, to me, an overkill, right? So we have every council member have done all these programs to be ready for council. We've been abreast with certain conducts and rules that define our actions. And in fact, the censure policy has been developed for reasons to correct or admonish conducts by council member, putting an extra layer of using electronic devices, not per se using the electronic devices, but it's common courtesy, it's common conduct, it's a conduct becoming of us being elected. But to put each and every definition there as if, to me, I feel that, hey, we're restricting ourselves too much when we do have a higher duty to begin with. So each and every chapter of this handbook, we put things that we believe coming from an experience. It's better to re-educate ourselves of what conduct we should do than just defining this. As everybody says, this will be for the future leaders of this. And those cultures 2 years ago, or how many years ago it has changed. The people feel that, and they elect people, they elect leaders that they believe could perform and conduct well. So that's just my thought. Instead of putting so much time on what you can hold or what you can do in the days or the closed session, let's just re-educate ourselves. Once in a while, we do have some reminders with regards to our conduct. That's just my thought.
Thank you, Councilmember Barbadillo. We do have those code of conducts already, and you are aware that those rules are sometimes not adhered to. And the reason why I say closed session specifically, because that area, that's the one place that we are not supposed to leak anything. And I just feel that we need to have those safeguards in place. So let's see, Councilmember Fan.
I think we need to get rid of this notion that technology is bad and, catch up with the times. At the end of the day,
It's just not, I'm sorry, but it's not bad. I'm just
you're
saying.
interrupting me, please. I'm trying to speak. Look, we're all adults here. This isn't a classroom. We can conduct ourselves. We don't need, we don't need anybody micromanaging us. What does that say about us as a council? That all of us can't be trusted? No, I agree with Councilmember Barbadillo. It's overkill. It's not even policy. It's fear mongering and very speculative. And again, it's bad politics. We have to maintain a sense of trust amongst each other, even when we disagree with each other. So I don't support that, those changes at all.
Okay, so. Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else? So what is the consensus on that? Vice Mayor Chua?
Thank you, Mayor. I listened to everybody and I see the mayor's point. Really, the confidentiality of closed session discussion is so critical to the decisions of the council. On the other hand, we do have a higher, like Councilmember Barbadillo said, we do have a higher, if you will, code of conduct, which is already there, that we all know we're not supposed to leak information. We all know not having the gadgets, the laptop or the phone will not really deter us. If you really want to leak information, we can go out and use our phone from wherever we left it off. So we should be driven by our morals and our obligations to the people, to our residents, and not be constrained by not having the electronic gadgets that we have. So I do support Council Member Bobadillo and Anthony Fan on this one. It's really up to each and every one of us.
Okay, thank you. But as I mentioned, not everybody adheres to those moral standards. So, I mean, sometimes you have people walking out and talking to other people with their cell phone in hand. So, all right, well, that looks like that is a discussion that staff will take the notes on that. Okay, the next one.
Thank you. So the next one is it.
Councilmember, Ashwini, Councilmember Barbadillo has one more comment.
Sure.
Last on the topic, just a question, and hopefully it means well. So this is for the city attorney. Let's assume hypothetically that there is an issue being discussed in the days or the closed session, and a constituent who is very passionate about, or who advocates about a certain way that constituent believes the council should decide. Wouldn't it be a violation of his right that he cannot text me and tell me what his thoughts about it as part of my decision-making process on a certain policy?
So Councilmember Barbadillo, he does have the right to address you. In the circumstance you're asking about, though, the hypothetical constituent would appropriately address you when he or she addresses the entire council during public comment on that topic. It would be a violation if you're communicating ex parte with, or it could be a violation if you're communicating ex parte with an interested party in a topic that you are in the process of considering. And when we were looking at the slide earlier about the priorities of different rules, certainly if you were having a quasi-judicial hearing, if you were talking about a permit application, an entitlement, an appeal, something of that nature, if there's text messages that you're getting that are outside of a public hearing that you then are considering, you're likely violating the due process rights of the person who's interested in that public hearing.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the next one.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the slide comes up, the next one we're talking about is under Chapter 4, and it's page, I believe, 19 of the agenda packet, page 12 of the handbook itself. It's section F2, and this is about seating. And right now the handbook basically calls for the mayor to be in the middle seat, the vice mayor immediately next to the mayor. And then council members are seated based on seniority, which is counted in terms of continuous time on the council. And if two people have equal seniority, then it's based on number of votes. And so that's what the handbook right now calls for. You have examples from other cities of handbooks, and some of the other cities do go by seniority, but they just give a preference to the people with seniority, so they can pick their seat.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor, let me hold.
There is a vague one here. The page 12, item number 2, the last sentence, the second to the last sentence of paragraph 2. When, let me read it, please. When, what is it? The council member with the most seniority seated next to the vice mayor followed by the next most senior council member, and so forth. Seniority is defined by continuous time of service as an elected member of the council. When two or more council members have equivalent time of service, those council members shall be given priority in seat selection by the highest number of votes in his or her most recent election. So, if I interpret this correctly, we looking at our seating arrangement right now, it's not following this verbiage. City Attorney?
Yes, as you're seated right now, you're likely not following this policy.
So in that case, we need to clarify this equivalent time of service. We need to say, how could we make it clearer? Obviously, there were a lot of discussion 2 years ago on the sitting arrangement, and we need to clarify this so there's no guessing or confusion. We need to make this clear that it's based on the service as an elected official, council member, I should say. So that's my feedback on that one. You don't need to answer that, but you need to come back with a clearer paragraph too.
And I just want to make a comment that when you say the word continuous, what about council members that have served previous years? Or does it mean just, one term to another term? So if you can clarify that. And Councilmember Fan?
I mean, regardless of, whether they've served prior terms, I'm still the most senior council member, believe it or not. Yeah. I know I look 15, but I've served for like 7 years now. And I'm not sure how I ended up here. I'm not really complaining because I get to hang out with Gary.
So I guess we'll decide that.
Yeah, but no, I do think we should follow the standards that were set though going forward.
Okay.
I just thought of something. Okay, we can follow this thing. I mean, if you make this clearer, City Attorney, but on the other hand, there should be a caveat that says that the council member has a say or can reject the sitting arrangement if they don't want to. Like if you want to stay at the corner,
At the end.
you're given the priority to choose your seat based on seniority. But if you want to stay there, that's okay too.
So one option, which would be a change to the policy, could be to have the mayor seated in the center as
Yeah.
currently stated, to have the vice mayor seated next to the mayor, and then to have each council member choose their seat, and that choice is made in order of seniority.
Yes, perfect. Seniority first. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilmember Barbadillo. No, I didn't see your name. Councilmember Barbadillo, and I was, oh, there you are. Okay. Councilmember Lin.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm glad that we have this session today discussing about the handbook. Going back to being mayor and appointing the vice mayor, I didn't make any comment just because I feel that it is just a title. What's important is how we serve and what we do behind the dais. For that item on page 12, the seat assignment, when I first, on that night that we swear in, I request to have the seat assignment based on the handbook. And I guess you, the mayor, saying that this is how you appointed everybody at their own seat. So then I asked to have a study session to go and make sure if we choose to follow the handbook, then let's do it 100%. Do not pick and choose what we want to follow, what we want to honor. And then on the other hand, the mayor has all the authority to override it. So that's my comment.
There's nothing.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Lin. Vice Mayor Chua.
I just want to add to Councilmember Lin's comment. I don't see anything here that says that the mayor can override. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Member Barbadio.
All right, since we're talking about seating arrangement, I want to ask, how about roll calls? I always go first. Is there?
Toss a coin.
No, I don't have a problem with that, but I can set a precedent or unprecedented. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If
This is by Robert's Rules of Order that we call it we call the roll in that order. We're actually going to be talking about that in the next section.
Okay, in that order means what? By
Goes
last.
by last name and
Yeah.
then the presiding officer.
Okay.
Yeah, and we will decide on that because it's Robert's Rules of Order. It's not a mandate. Those are guidelines. We don't have to follow Robert's Rules of Order. Actually, we don't even have to follow the council handbook because the previous council decided not to even follow the handbook. So, and I found out that that's legal. So,
Okay.
but
Thank you, Mayor.
we are adopting a handbook. We are following.
I just asked that out of curiosity. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anybody else? Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to the next one.
Okay, so the next one is same chapter, just the next page, which is section G, voting rules of procedure. And there's several sections under subsections under G. And this is what I think we wanted to talk about is the kind of rules of procedure, Robert's Rules of Order. So whether the order of voting or anything else the council wishes to discuss in this section.
Okay. Any comments on that?
I will just comment to sort of address Councilmember Barbadillo's question. The voting order comes from Robert's Rules of Order. However, Robert's Rules of Order is what we rely on if there is no council policy on the issue. So if the council would like a council policy, it could be voting in order of seniority. It could be voting by last name. It could be voting by first name. It could be that everybody draws a number from the hat at the first meeting of the council being seated. It could be anything that the council wants. That change could then be made to the handbook that would supersede Robert's Rules of Order. We would follow whatever's in the handbook.
Do you have some? Do you want me to turn your mic on? Councilmember Barbadillo, do you want me to turn your mic on so you can say something? I don't see you. Okay. There. Councilmember Barbadillo, what?
Oh, are you speaking? No, he's not.
Okay, go ahead,
Um,
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a way we can, I can see Councilmember Barbadillo's point, because sometimes you're still thinking of what you're still rehashing, and you're always the first one to get called, so you don't have enough time to digest the data. So is there a way we can like, I don't know how hard or how cumbersome is it? Is there a way that, by position, you can start at the, like, council member Fan, go like this, and then the next item will be, the first one would be council member Barbadillo, and then the next item would be would be, yeah. So it's at random. It's not always that one person being first. So
That would be an option.
is that a good option? I mean, go by
Yeah.
the seating arrangement. Because I remember the previous council member, I was always the first one called because I'm over there, and I go, So if you can just go by seating arrangement, but each item, yeah,
Would that be hard to track though?
would that be hard to track? I don't know. City clerk, you can do it. Well, what I'm saying, it gives everybody the
I do
chance.
feel, however, that it could be seen as overly complex and maybe hard to reflect in the council handbook.
Well,
I think for this one, maybe Mayor will just take that input and think about how we could do it. It seems, because every item you'd have to keep track and know who you started with. So let us think about that a little bit.
I also would note that Robert's Rules of Order allows a member to pass. If that member does pass because that member is thinking or doing something like that, then the way the roll call vote works under Robert's rules would be each of the other members are called, including the presiding member, and then the member who passed is called. So Robert's rules will allow for that. I will also note that this is an issue related to roll call voting, and hopefully in the near future we'll be capable of using electronic voting, at which point each member will vote at the same time or
Okay.
will be displayed at the same.
There you go. You pass.
anybody, any more comments? Okay. But I will mention that in other city councils, it is the mayor that chooses the selects. So this came about because it was brought to the staff's attention that that the way the order was, that person was always going to be called that. I'm not sure why that changed. Because of all the councils that I've been, all the mayors, they select who they call on. But it was brought to the staff's attention, and then it was changed. So we're changing the mayor's authority to select who they want to call on. We're doing that right now, because right now we're doing alphabetical order. And so right now you're saying that the recommendation is to just call on anybody. Is that what you're saying, Vice Mayor? Randomly? Go ahead and clarify for everybody.
Yes, Mayor. I'm just trying to address Councilmember Barbadillo's not dilemma, but the challenge, right? So I'm trying to be equal opportunity voter here. So
If staff could just take notes and then we'll
there's
discuss it. Oh, that was Gary. Oh.
Okay, if it's creating too much trouble, forget that I asked. I said I asked out of curiosity, and I wanted a reason why the roll call is the roll call or the voting is called that. So it's fully explained. We have a rules on that. In doing that, fine with it, and I'll defer to the whole council. If there's a need for change, then maybe we can recommend that and talk it more. But I don't want to be the one who said that, hey, I want to change. I don't. Right? It's just right. so that, those questions also, maybe some of our constituents also ask that, hey, why always Gary is the first one who votes? Things like that. So those questions, maybe we can consider, and also an information to the community. That's it.
Yeah. All right.
No.
Yeah, I do like that random though. All right. I do like the random where it doesn't have to be a set sequence. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and if you can put that down, that anybody can pass if they decide not to vote on there. Okay, next item, Ashwini.
Yes, the next item is chapter 6, city council actions, proclamations and commendations, page 23 of the handbook, page 30 of your packet. And it's the first two sections. The first one is proclamations, and they are issued by the mayor. They can be issued by the mayor without formal action by the city council. And council members need to make their request to the mayor. Only the mayor can issue proclamations. Commendations can be issued by the mayor. And I think this is where maybe we need some clarification in the language on the council members being able to request. At this point, the current practice is that a council member can request a commendation. But since the commendations have the city seal, the mayor also signs the commendation. So that's the current practice. And we can clarify that in the handbook with any additional discussion and direction today.
Any comments? I think that one is fine as it is. I do have a question on resolutions. Can you clarify, City Attorney, on the resolutions? Is that in the mayor and a mayor do a resolution? Or does it have to be the whole council?
In order to adopt a resolution, the entire council would have to adopt a resolution. A mayor couldn't unilaterally adopt a resolution.
Okay. Any other questions on the commendations, proclamations? Okay, and that's in the municipal code, right? All that about the proclamations.
The proclamation and commendations are in the handbook, Mayor.
Oh, it's not in the municipal code?
I don't think so.
Okay, I thought it was. Okay, Vice Mayor.
Notes here, I'm looking at my notes. On commendation, the proclamation is cut and dry. The mayor has to, that's mayor's responsibility or duty. The commendation, I have a question on this. If a council member asks for a commendation and the mayor says no, what happens? It's not on here.
So again, the current practice has varied over time. It's evolved. The current practice, Vice Mayor, is because the commendations are handed out with documents that have the city seal. So maybe, Mayor, that's what you were referring to, the use of the city seal for proclamations and commendations. That's in the municipal code. And so given that, the mayor needs to sign the commendation as well. So if the mayor refuses, I guess it doesn't get issued.
Oh, okay.
So
So there's no recourse for the council member to appeal. I'm just asking. I mean, huh? Okay.
There was
Why would she refuse?
any mayor, not just me. There was a time when only the mayor was allowed to sign the commendations. So I don't know where that came from, but in the past, former mayors would it was only the mayor that could sign commendations, which is, I think it's not good practice, but it's just I'm glad that it has changed. I think that's it. I don't think I don't see anybody else. Vice Mayor?
Oh, I mean, what if the council member, I'm just,
Hypothetical.
hypothetical, what if the council member is really passionate about giving this commendation? And for some reason, the mayor says, no. What's our recourse? What do you recommend, city attorney?
I don't think a mayor would say no. What, might be another mayor. Who says it's a she? It might be a he. They're talking about, this is the handbook, this is a handbook for the future. Okay.
Hey, here you go, city attorney.
So as it stands now, I'm not sure there's any appeal process aside from council member could request a resolution issuing a proclamation, at which point that would come to the entire council. If the council resolved to issue a proclamation, then the mayor would be derelict in his or her duty by not signing the proclamation. So
I think she's referring to commendations, right?
sorry, I misspoke. I meant commendation. So if the mayor refused to sign a commendation, council member could ask for a resolution issuing a commendation. The city attorney would draft that resolution that would come before the council. The council would then vote on it. If the majority of the council voted to issue a commendation, or a resolution to issue a commendation, the mayor would be derelict in his or her duty by not signing that commendation.
Okay, so that's the process, kind of like
that would
process
be-
of appeal.
That would be the processes of appeal as the handbook stands now. If there was to be a simpler process, or some other process, we could think about how we could streamline that.
Okay, so come back with that verbiage, please. Thank you.
Okay, council member Ann.
Yeah, I think that all of us should be able to request accommodations. This isn't necessarily requesting, special resolutions and big plaques and all of that. It's really, if we're showing up to an event and we happen to be the only one that's there, or whatnot, and perhaps we feel more connected to this organization, than other ones, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's just out of pure convenience that we should be able to present commendations. Historically, in the past, when I would request commendations, sometimes I didn't want the mayor at the time signing the commendation. So I would have a commendation with just my name on it or another council member's name on it. And I would just have that request go to Rochelle, and she has templates, and she'll just chug it in and get it, printed like right away. It's not a very timely or costly process. It's really just an email. And of course, there's a archive of all the commendations because it's a public document. So the transparency is there. But at the end of the day, it was a very simplified process. I don't know when that changed, but in the past, I've always been able to request commendations. I actually have the templates myself, so there were times when I didn't want to bother our assistant, and I would just make it myself.
With the city seal?
Yeah.
I don't think that could be done. Oh,
Well, you sent out letters with the city seal, and we didn't, approve of it.
that's the
So
mayor's prerogative, but But we can ask the city attorney.
It's not the mayor's prerogative. I don't know what planet you're living on, but I think you need to review, all the duties that the mayor is, entitled to. It's not that different from a council member. And, you're experiencing delusions of grandeur if you think otherwise.
Yeah. Vice Mayor Chua?
I get the Councilmember Pan's argument. I mean, side of the question. I think it was City Attorney Milpitas that said any commendation with the seal has to have the mayor's signature. Please clarify. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
So documents that have the official documents that have the city seal need to be signed by the mayor or the person designated in the municipal code. That person designated in the municipal code is the city manager. It would be potentially possible to create a proclamation that use the city mark rather than the city seal that would not require the mayor's signature.
Okay, so anybody else want to say anything else? We go ahead and staff and review all those options. Thank you. Next one.
Okay, so the next set of items are not already in the handbook. They're new items, new topics. So the first one is city council salaries. So this is governed by the municipal code. So it's Title I, Chapter 14, which lays out city council salaries, city council members, as well as the mayor's salary. And we also have recent legislation that was enacted, SB 329, that has some implications in the future if council wanted to take action on changing the salaries. And maybe I can, if I can ask you to bring up slide 18, please. So while we're bringing up the slide, so for city council salaries, as I mentioned, it's in the municipal code, Title I, Chapter 14. And it lays out, the section lays out the actual salary amount. So right now, the city council members receive the sum of $904.37 per month. And then the mayor receives a sum of $1,130.75 per month. And any increase or decrease in salary can be changed by council resolution. It's typically, this is governed by state law, and it's based on changes in population or by voters, and they go into effect after the next general election. So as I mentioned, Senate Bill 329 does allow an adjustment to salaries, allows an increase. It would require an ordinance or an amendment to an ordinance to change that. And again, it would go into effect basically when a new council member or multiple council members are seated when it's the next general election in 2024. So we'll stop there, and maybe if you have any specific things you want us to bring up, we're happy to do that.
Vice
I
Mayor.
have a question to the city attorney. Is there a way that the Senate Bill 329, right? Can you keep that, please, that slide? The Senate Bill 329 allows increases in salary, requires salary increase by ordinance. Is that a one-time thing, or is that every, I don't know what it is, or what exactly the SB is, but can you please explain?
Sure, Councilmember Chua, thank you for the or Vice Mayor Chua, thank you for the question. Senate Bill 329 allows the council to adopt an ordinance in order to increase salaries for a city of this size. The salary for a council member would be roughly $1,500. This wouldn't include would not include fringe benefits. It's also still currently allowable for an elected mayor to be paid an increase above that salary in the system we have now. SB 329 further then allows the council to adopt an ordinance each year or whenever it chooses to increase the council member salaries above the $1,500 that would be allowed now by 5% each year for each year that no increase was given, or up to 5% for each year that no increase was given, or if inflation is very, very high, the API for the state of California, no greater than 10% for those years.
Is there a way we can make that automatic, that it doesn't have to go through the council?
No, SB 329 explicitly forbids a council from having automatic salary increases. It makes it so the council has to contemplate it each year or each time that the council wants to raise.
So each year, right? I mean, I'm just talking for the future council members, because this is not effective for the people that are sitting here. I'm thinking of the other ones. So how can we help them? So what would be the process to be able to allow the increase?
So
Well, that from the SB 329.
we can certainly prepare an ordinance and bring it back to you guys in fairly short order to make the SB 329 increase.
Mm-hmm.
That would raise it to the 1,500 amount. The council would also have to determine, and this could be done in the same ordinance, the percentage above the elected mayor, the percentage above a council member that the elected mayor is making. Currently, it's at 25%. After that's adopted, it will go into effect the next time a council is seated. So this would be probably December of 2024. After that, the council could raise council salaries 5% each year. It could also sort of bank those raises. So if the council waited 5 years and then again decided to do council salary increases in 2029, let's say, it would be able to have an increase of 5% for 2025, 5% for 2026, 5% for 2027, and so on, so that the raise would include all the 5%.
I get that.
Banked.
I got it. So to follow the letter of SB 329, so if you, create a ordinance to increase it to whatever it's being suggested, and in 2024, then the council again can opt to say every 5 years every year is 5%. Do we have to they have to do that in 2024, correct?
Each year, the council wants to receive
Each
to increase
year.
the compensation.
Okay,
It would have to adopt an ordinance.
got it.
Functionally, I guess this would be every 2 years because an ordinance adopted in the off year would not
Yeah.
go into effect. So then every 2 years, essentially, the council could adopt a 5% increase for those years or the API up to the 10%.
Yeah. So anyway, so bring back those different options for us to consider, and all the different options, because so yeah, go ahead. So all the options, we could see different options here. That would be good. That would be good.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
We have Councilmember Fan next.
Yeah, is SB 329 just for general law cities? Or is that also for charter cities?
SB 329 is specifically for general law cities. So
General law.
charter cities could have slightly different rules.
Okay, so I see a number of ways to approach it. City of San Jose, and keep in mind, San Jose is obviously a charter city, but they have a separate independent council salary setting commission, and that's composed of just community members, and they would make a recommendation in which council would approve of, and that's one way we can sort of remove ourselves from it. I mean, it's still us approving it, but at least it went through an independent body for the purposes of transparency. And then the other thing to consider is, and I think this is a broader conversation that's relevant to this topic today, the council handbook, is do we want to continue being a general law city? Because we are obviously limited to what us as a governing body can or can't do. A charter city, would have a lot more flexibility, and a lot of these state restrictions wouldn't apply to them. So that's something to consider. That goes beyond, this discussion about salary. It goes towards our prerogatives. What can we do? Our terms and, whatnot. And, to put things into perspective, it's not one of those things where a city has to be a large city to be considered to enter the whole charter city process, take into account city of San Leandro, population of about 88,000. So it mirrors very much our growth in population. Their city council is actually half time, I believe, and they're paid, I think, like 60,000 each council member, and I believe they have more than 5 council members. And in addition to staff too, they would have staff too, and their budget isn't that far off from ours. But what I'm trying to say is it's not about the city's size. It's really a conversation we want to have with ourselves and with the constituents. And if this is a resource that allows the city of Milpitas to transcend and achieve its full potential, not just in public policy, but also planning and land use, for the next generations, it can make a huge difference. And obviously voters would have a great say in it because they have to approve ultimately the charter. So something for us to think about. I've brought this conversation out in the past. Previous councils weren't receptive to it, I think, because they didn't necessarily understand what it entailed. But at the end of the day, it gives the council the most power to make a difference.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I was the chair about over 10 years ago of the task force that looked into chartered versus general law city. And I think that question right now is very relevant because the way the city has grown.
So I would suggest Councilmember Fan at the announcement portion to put that on one of our lists. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. That's a good one.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, will staff take those recommendations for the next meeting? Next item, Ashwini?
Yes, Mayor. So we could bring up the slides. We'll be going to the training and travel budget for council. So as I mentioned in the adopted budget, it is $10,000 each for each council member and the mayor. And we do have a council policy related to travel and reimbursement expenses, council policy 3-1 that outlines what the money can be spent on, the approval process, et cetera, et cetera. So any expenditures from this fund basically come to the whole council for any of the council members' travel or conference registrations or any other registrations. And that's what we have right now. So happy to take any additional direction you would like to give on the, if you want to have the policy updated or have any kind of separate guidance on the user approval process of this money.
Any comments from the council? Okay,
So if we can get some guidance here, and Sweeney, can you answer this question? Within that 10,000 travel budget for each council, can we set a limit? Let's say if it's under 300, we don't need to bring it to the council. And for events that council members go to as an elected official, could it be out of this fund, or is it just for traveling and seminars and trainings only?
So maybe, Councilmember, let me take the first question. Right now, there is no threshold, but it's certainly something that the council can discuss. And if we wanted to add that in, we could do that. Right now, everything just goes to the full council for approval. And then for the second part of the question, I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. So you're talking about an event. If it's related to city business, so to the role of the council members, then that this money can be used for that. So I don't know if there's something specific you have questions about, but yes, anything related to kind of your role as being on the council, related to city business, related to any kind of educational conferences, seminars, even networking events that relate to your official role. Those are typically that you can use the money, but again, it comes to the full council.
Yes, it comes to the full council, but let's say if the event is in San Jose and is, a simple event that will cost a ticket to, if we purchase a ticket, it's $100. That will be covered under this. And do we need to bring it to the full council for $100? And sometimes it's not, we just don't have enough time to.
Okay, so I get what you're asking, Councilmember Leanne. So let us again think about it some and maybe bring back some options.
Sure, thank you.
Sure.
thank you. So Ashwini, I have a couple of, if you can, at the next meeting, if we could provide what things we can use for and what things we cannot. That's what I would like to see.
Okay.
We need to see that but I was told in the past that we could not use it for, let's say I want to pay Kiwanis or chamber an event, and I can't use that. I can't for a dinner. I can't use that. Or a membership. So we need to know what we can use it for and what we can't, and then what type of classes can we use and what classes we can't use. I'd like to see more specifics.
Okay, so what
Anyway.
you can use it for types of classes and then maybe some options for thresholds and approval process if it's maybe something that's under a certain amount, an approval process for that.
Right, because I do recall in the past, I wanted to attend some women's event, but former city manager said, no, we can't use public funds for that. You have to, it has to come out of your own pocket. So
Okay.
anyways, we can double check because we want to make sure we do it right. Vice Mayor,
Thank you, Mayor. I have the same, concerns like the Mayor and Councilmember Lynn. Like, what about publication books? I mean, is that included on here or that's a separate? Yeah, we need clarity on those. Like, I don't know, like classes, like public speaking, how to. I think recently you something about a class on how to do grants or something like that, and I think and also like if we're invited to like a fundraising for Cancer Society or something, and as a council member, I think we advocate several causes and that should be part of it. And if it's not part of it now, how can we make it part of it? I guess that's my question to City Attorney. How can we make this really, I mean, we go to events a lot and you saw the salary. And some of these events, you cannot just go there for free because you're not allowed to sometimes. And then you have to skip it, but you really want to go. So you take it out of your own resources. But on the other hand, it adds up. And so I would like to see because we have to be there. We're the representative of the community. And if we're locked into certain areas, we need to do something. That's what I'm trying to say. And I look to you, City Attorney, to clarify that. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you. Yeah, and even donations. So Councilmember Lynn,
Yes, and also
thank you all.
Also on the hotel, I know in the handbook it says anything that's under 75 miles from our city, the hotel would not be covered. But if it's a 2 days conference in San Francisco, and San Francisco is way under 75 miles, but I hate to get up at 5 and show up there for an 8 a.m. session. So if we can change that, if it's 1 day, then it's no problem. If it's 2 days, 3 days, I don't want to go back and forth driving. So
Okay.
we can change that in our handbook. Thank you.
And Councilmember Leanne, just to clarify, so that is a separate policy. So we'll bring changes to the policy. It's not covered in the handbook. Anything related to travel. So we can bring changes to the policy forward.
Hey, thank you, Councilmember Lynn. Anybody else? So actually, this brings a good point. What about what the sister cities? Sometimes they invite us to go to their country, but I don't know what our parameters are with a sister city. So if you can look into that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if our fund would cover that? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any more. So any more questions? Go ahead and go to the next one, please.
Yes, so the next one is policies and procedures related to censure. And again, this is not covered in the handbook, but there is a separate policy. It's a resolution, actually, resolution 8703 that covers the process if members of the council wanted to censure another member of the council. So it is already in place. So I'm not sure if it's not covered in the handbook, but there is a pretty detailed policy in place.
Okay, and so I had a question on that one. So it does say, what page was it on?
So it's not in the
Oh,
handbook,
here it is.
but there's a link. There's a link to it.
Yeah. So that one, had a couple of questions on, it says admonition, this is on page 2 of that. Admonition may be directed to all members of the city council, reminding them of a particular type of behavior is in violation of law or city policy. So when you say admonition, I'm not sure, how do you admonish someone? What are the steps and what, how severe does the behavior have to be? And then the reprimands, how do you reprimand? What is a reprimand? How do you reprimand somebody? A council member? What is I guess the quantitative ramifications. So if you can bring that back, what does, because from my understanding, and Hanlin, you might know this, I think Michael Sy from the school board was censured. But what did that really mean? And I think I heard that he wasn't allowed to go to any meetings. He wasn't allowed to vote. So I don't know, but I didn't see that in here. So,
Mayor, so if there are sanctions, I think it's our policy says they may include removal from a committee and restrictions on city-related travel privileges.
city-related travel, I did see that. So that means that their budget would be restricted.
Yeah, I mean, it could be one of the things the council chooses, but that's what currently the resolution says.
So if you can get one, the censure, what is the MUSD's censure policy and other cities, that would be good.
Okay.
All right. Let's have, thank you. Councilmember Lynn.
Yeah, Sweeney,
Yes.
the restrictions from traveling, how long is that? And what is the length of censure?
It's not specific in terms of the travel restrictions. So we can bring, again, as the mayor suggested, maybe we look at other cities' policies and MUSD's policy, but this is fairly open-ended. It kind of says they may include things like removal from a committee or restrictions on travel. So I think it's a lot of it is
MUSD, at MUSD, we had a 6-month censure, the length.
Okay.
So the censure policy at step 4 would require a resolution of the council. The resolution of the council would have to state exactly what censure action was being taken, which would include a duration of the censure, and would likely depend on the council's view of the severity of the acts that were taken by the censured party. And then it may include, as stated, restrictions on committees, removal from committees, temporary or permanent removal from committees, or city-related travel for the duration of the resolution.
So I had a question on that, City Attorney. So the resolutions, when would those come in? When would those be proposed?
So a sort of brief summary of the censure policy, the resolution containing the censure policy that you have in front of you, is any member could refer another member for censure. If that occurred, the city attorney would appoint a censure subcommittee, which would hear all the evidence from the referring member as well as the accused member. That subcommittee would then give a report to the council as a whole. The council as a whole would then consider its options. The options that the council might consider are these 4 options listed here, which includes an admonition to the entire council, a direction for a specific council member to correct a specific action, an informal reprimand, or a formal resolution for censure that could include specific consequences like removal from a committee or travel restrictions.
Okay, yeah, if you could bring some samples of other cities, that'd be great. Have Councilmember Lynn.
Yeah, just curious, does that apply to everyone, including the vice mayor and the mayor?
Everybody.
Okay. Just in case.
Everybody, it's the whole handbook. Okay, is there any other comments? If not, let's go to the next one.
Okay, the next one is about interns. So we have a council policy on city council interns. As you know, the budget includes funding for an intern each for members of the council. And so again, we have the policy outlining kind of what interns can be used for, who can or cannot become an intern, and what types of things they can do, and what is the responsibility of the council member in terms of directing work, and the responsibility of the city administration.
What
And
page was, can you remind me what page that was on? Oh, here, it's 29.
Yeah, so on the agenda.
Oh, wait, no, it's not
But
29. It's liaisons.
it's a link on mine, so I think you have a hard copy, Mayor, so it's probably towards the end of your packet.
Okay.
And again, these are undergraduate or graduate school interns.
So that one, and I brought this one up, and the reason being is that I don't think we should be restricted to have our interns be a certain age or being in school. I mean, I think it should be an opportunity for people that are more mature in terms of age. So that's why I brought this up. I think we should be able to have interns that have a lot of experience, that have worked in city government before. So that's why I brought this up, and I wanted to hear from the council what their thoughts are. Let's have.
Thank you, Mayor. When I read this, the one that stood out to me is their undergrad going to school or grad student going to school. I would like to see, because some graduates, they need this internship and they're not really going to school. They're in the process of getting a job. So I think we need to be able to include, not to restrict them. If they're not going to school, but they're graduate, it's okay. I mean, let us give them the opportunity to have that internship. So that's my feedback on this one.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Are there any other
Thank you,
comments from the council members? And Ben.
Yeah, I think for those who were enrolled, within a certain time frame, I think that's reasonable. But then again, I also know that it can take a long time to find a job. So, any way we can make the language work for that purpose, I'm fine with. I do think that, the purpose of an internship is for folks who need the skills and experience. I don't agree with the notion that it should be people with experience, because it kind of defeats the purpose of an internship, right? So like students and people who need that experience, I'm fine with that. But otherwise, it's just a job, right? It's not really an internship at that point. Call it a job. So.
Any more comments? Okay, and the reason why I felt that this was not to be limited just to interns is because it takes, because I had one and it took a lot of my time to train them. And I know that Vice Mayor, you said it just takes, if they're not already have the skill set, it takes some of our time. So, but we'll see how that goes. And, seems like the majority of the council wants it to be interns. So, anybody else want to say anything about this? Okay, we'll just move on.
Okay. So the next couple of topics on the next slide are related to items that are not in the handbook, not really included in any other governing documents. So the first one is keys to the city. And when should these be given out? And as I noted earlier, we could incorporate this into the handbook, chapter 6 of the handbook under city council actions.
Right. This is, what page was it, Ashwini, on the hard copy?
You mean in the agenda report? We don't have it in the handbook yet, Mayor.
Oh, okay.
So I think we're just looking
right.
for direction
Okay.
from the council today.
Okay, so and I'll speak from my experience on previous consuls, and we know that the mayor is the person to give out those keys. But I do recall that the previous mayor that I worked under, you just don't give it to anybody. It's people that are like from another country or that have made a significant contribution to the city. And so I think we need to have something in place, rules, policy of when to give those keys out and who to give them out to. Because it was very, because if you give them out too much, it takes away the, what's the word? It takes away the value of it, So I think we need to set a policy on that. So I'd like to hear from my council members. Anybody? Okay, Vice Mayor.
I think you're absolutely right, Mayor. If you just give it away like hotcakes, pancakes or whatever, or candies, it takes away the prestige, the significance, and the value of it. I do agree with that. So how do we control that? How do we say, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe so there have to be guidelines. We need guidelines. Yeah. It's not just because you like the person or something like that. It has to be significant. So, and maybe, I'm looking to city attorney to put the verbiage on it. That also maybe, I don't know, this is just thinking out loud right now. Maybe not to exceed a year, a month, or you see what I'm saying? Or once a month, I don't know. But it has to be significant. It has to be a measurable contribution to the community. That's why they were giving this key to the city. That's all I have. I don't know how to measure it, to be honest.
Very well said. It has to be a significant contribution to the city. So if staff can come up with some guidelines, some parameters for the next meeting.
Yes, we can do that.
All right. And
And then the next one is.
we have sorry, we have Councilmember Fan.
Yeah, I think how we can sort of control that is just make sure council approves it. I think whenever something is too vague and it's like very arbitrary, like that's kind of our job, right? To decide stuff like that. So just delegate it to the council and have a short, discussion about it. Or even put it on consent calendar. I don't care as long as there's a process for it. I think that would be appropriate.
Great.
Ashwini, I
Yes.
think now that I recall, it's kind of like sort of like the naming of the different facilities in
Yes.
city. There are guidelines
Yes.
and it is approved by the council, something like that.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We do have that called out.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Fan.
And then the next one was placement of past council member mayor photos in the council chamber. So this is not in the handbook. We could incorporate it, as I mentioned in the introduction, into a different policy, maybe related to city facilities where we have some language about the placement of seals and flags in city facilities, but maybe this could be incorporated there, or we could look at the handbook as well for this one.
Okay, thank you. So this one, Debbie Giordano, former council member Giordano, her picture, she was on the council for 12 years and her photo is not up there. And I think, and you have one that was there 4 years and Councilmember Giordano was there 12 years, yet her picture's not on there. And I don't know who else is missing, but there should be some type of like a timeline. For example, your photo can be put up after 7 years or 8 years, after two terms, maybe 8 years. So that's some suggestion.
Mayor, just to clarify, so after they're off the council?
Yes. After the council.
2 term, 8 years after they've been off the council?
Right. Or maybe if you want to lower it to 7 years. We can kick that around, but I don't feel it doesn't do justice for the other people that were here for a very long time. That served. And then yeah, so if you can we can go over that. We can
Sure.
first decide if that's what we want and then what would be the time frame.
And then it would be all council members or? would
Right,
it be
mayor
both
too.
Vice mayors and all council members?
Mayor and council.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Councilmember Lynn.
I disagree with that. I think all council members does not matter the term they serve. Once they're a council member, they do 1 term, 2 term, 3 terms, their picture should be on there.
Okay, anybody else?
Mayor?
Vice Mayor Chua.
Hi, Ashwini. I think you have two questions that you were trying to answer. First is how long have they served in the council? And Councilmember Lin said, it doesn't matter how long, like as long as they have served, they could have been appointed for 3 years, when there's a vacancy and there was no election. There are council members, they should be up there. And some members could have just served 1 term on their own choice. They should be up there as well. On the point of mayor, on how long
the wait period to be up there. And I think we look up to you to make the recommendation, whether it's, like the mayor said, 7 years or whatever is appropriate, what other cities do as well. That's all I have, Mayor.
Yeah, actually, you have a good point. Councilmember Lin, yeah, you're right. It shouldn't matter how much time you served. But I feel that there should be a timeline, a waiting period. And I recommend 7 years. If someone feels there's a different time, then you can take that recommendation you can add that on the notes for the staff when you bring it back. Okay, I don't see any other comments. Okay, next item, or was that the last one?
Yes, that was the last one based on what council members have brought forward. Mayor, as I mentioned, there were a couple of cleanup items that can just be noted, and we can bring that back related to meetings, meeting start time, and then related to meeting agendas. So we can bring that back. Again, these are just to align with current practice.
Oh, the start time, was that,
So
you want us to discuss that?
the start time, we were proposing to delete the reference to that in the handbook. It's already governed by the municipal code, and if we wanted to make any changes, we'd need to amend the municipal code. So taking that out of the handbook because it's duplicative. And then meeting agendas and minutes, again, just to align with what our agendas and minutes look like already.
Okay. Is there anybody else that has any other comments? Vice Mayor?
Mayor, I still have one more, but I can't find my notes on it. I'm sorry. Oh, there you go. Oh, okay, it's page 12. Oh, that's not it. It has something to do, who can request an item to be added to the agenda. Where would that be? Because it's vague the way I saw it when I read it last night. Do you know where it's at, buddy?
Should be maybe chapter 5. Let me pull it out.
What page is it?
Yeah, I just need to pull up the handbook.
What page, please? 19. Yes, I have my notes there. Okay. Okay. Yeah, there you go. It's page 21, paragraph, the second paragraph. And I really do want a clarification on this. This is I'm going to read it. The mayor or the council member may request the city manager to add an item to the council agenda. No staff report or other staff work will occur until the item is discussed before the full city council. Discussion and prioritization by the city council will occur on a quarterly basis. So I want clarification on this because this was an issue that we had problems with early on. And I want the city attorney to explain this because it's really confusing. And the way we did it last time, I don't think it was, I don't know. Please explain.
Thank you, Councilmember Vice Mayor Chua. I believe that this particular paragraph refers to a larger council policy related to the prioritization list. So there was a prioritization list policy that was adopted by the council, I want to say or finalized by the council in 2022, at which time council members make requests. Those requests get put on the prioritization.
Let me stop you right there. In that case, that's not the one I'm referring to.
I'm referring to not you're talking about the council list. That's not it. I'm referring to the issue that we had early this year or middle of this year when an item was added and there was like, the way I recall it, that's why I highlighted this, because the way I recall it, you mentioned that only the city manager, the city attorney, and the mayor and majority of the council can put an item on the agenda. But we don't have this anywhere here, I think. We need to add that. Am I right?
So I believe you're referring to section 1 on page 21. The city manager has a primary responsibility for the development of the council agenda, ensuring the protocols are followed and the management of the agenda is closely linked and organized to the goals and work plans. Any item that is placed on the agenda shall be in accordance with the city's open government ordinance so that it can be clearly understood by members of the community.
Can we make this clear, like the verbiage that you told us at that point, to make sure to incorporate it here and make it very clear? Then that's how we should follow. Because I don't see it in this handbook.
Yes, I think we can work on that and bring it back to you.
No, it's about like we had a problem with early on. Do you remember?
The procedure, yeah. how-
Yeah, what is it that we should follow? We
The
weren't
steps.
clear. We weren't clear on what to follow. You know, so please let's make this clear, because so we know what to follow next time. How an item gets onto the agenda, whether it's closed session or regular session or special session. 'Cause I don't know. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I do have another question on page 9, types of meetings. So my question on item 2, this is chapter 4. Meetings. So it says special meetings may be called by the mayor. They can also be called by a majority of the council at a public meeting. So I was wondering, can a special meeting be called by the city manager? City attorney.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting caught up
Oh, okay.
with,
I'll let you
to
catch
where
up.
you're reading.
So you want me to repeat it? So I just want, basically, can a city manager call for a special meeting? Because here it says only the mayor and the council, the majority of the council.
So according to this, there's nothing in here that allows the city manager to call a special meeting. But this is the council handbook. This isn't a policy for city managers. So arguably the city manager
I was just wondering if.
would still be within the power of the city manager to do so. You may not see it in here. It may be something we want to clarify.
No, I just was
you
wondering.
may not want the city manager to have that power, but what we're looking at here is the rules of decorum for the city council, not
Yes,
for
I'm
the city
aware of
manager.
that, but I just was curious if the city manager can call a special meeting. Vice Mayor, you have a comment?
Just. Yeah, so we're clearing every item that we're trying to tonight. So maybe you can make a notation that the city manager can also call a special meeting. How about the council? Can the majority of the council do that as well? Where's that at?
Yes.
Yeah, right here. Oh, okay, I got it. What about special meeting? So that's include that. Okay. Okay, if you can clarify that, so it's not like we're asking questions over and over again. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions from city council members? On any of these items or any that you missed or that you'd like to bring up right now? Now is your chance. Okay, well, with that, I think that's it. Staff, do you have any comments before we end this meeting?
No additional comments. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We did have I wanted to ask the city council how they feel about this. When we went over the handbook, we had hired, what was her name? Baker Tilly. To go over some of the items on the handbook. So I'm wondering if the council would like to hire that person again, or just do it as we're doing it now. To like a retreat or. So I need some comments, or just leave it, Vice Mayor.
Mayor, I think at that time, we didn't have a city attorney. Now we do have two and a executive assistant. I don't think there's a need for that. And these are simple changes that we don't need to spend money on.
Okay,
That's my
that's your
feedback.
take. Okay, that seems like there's a consensus on that. Okay, all right. Just threw it out there. So now we will ask for announcements from any of the council members. Any announcements? Let me see. Member Fan?
Yeah, so two things. The first one pertains to the conversation we had earlier on the topic of the charter city. I would like to explore that if there's consensus for that. And two, at one of I think the last council meeting when we took action on CEDAW, the Commission on the Violence Against Women. I think that I want to clarify that it's a county grant. It's not a federal funding. So the funds do currently exist for it. We just need to write a grant, submit a proposal. So
I'm sorry, Mayor, I need to interrupt. This section is only announcements on this special meeting. On the agenda, it's only listed as announcements, not future agenda items.
Oh, I see. Is that
right.
correct, City Attorney?
I'll bring that back for a future discussion. But regarding the charter city, I guess I'll just bring that back. Yeah.
So is that correct, City Attorney?
The only thing listed on the agenda is announcements. We do not have future agenda items listed on this particular agenda.
Okay.
So we'll limit this item to announcements made by a council.
Is there a prohibition for future special meetings? Can we just make it a standard that we can do announcements for future agenda items? Is that feasible, or is there any law that allows us not to do that?
No, as long as it's written on the agenda, you could make the future item request.
Yeah, moving forward, let's just make that as a regular feature of the announcement, so we won't forget. Thank you both.
All right. So I guess I'll just wait for my announcements for the next following meeting to say my announcements then. Okay. And so now, anything else? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.